Hi, this is Rock. We're going to talk about the char function. I think that's how you would say it. I think it comes from character, so maybe it's car. But the car, whatever you call it, function is one that follows a list of character codes that you can put in as part of your function and bring back a particular character. So if you see here, these two tables of character codes starting from 0 and going through 255 are shortcuts in a function to get a particular character. So what that means is if I want to get the uppercase D, I can use a function for char as 68 with being the argument. So I can say equals char 68, close that, and it gives me a capital D. How is that useful? I'll tell you where I use this, and I use it frequently. And that's when I'm concatenating and I want to use, as part of my concatenation, a double quotes or a single quote. Because when you use the concatenate formula, if you say concatenate, because the way to start a text indicator, say I want to include this text, is to use a double quote, it's difficult to actually use a double quote. Do you start the double quote and then you use a single quote and then a double quote to say, ignore the fact that I said double quote and then show me what you show here? You know, it gets very confusing. So if in building concatenated formulas, you use char for double quotes, you'll be able to do things like this. If I say equals concat, and then I say I said, and then if what I want to have next is a quotation mark start, I can put char 34, and then I can say no, and then end that with char 34. Now it says in my phrase, it shows the double quotes in there. That's a trick. You can use it as well for char 39, which is the single quote. Char 10 is a carriage return. So if you want to use char 10 in a formula that's a concatenation, now I'm using, in this case, in this example, I'm using ampersand instead of the whole concatenate formula, but it works the same way. Char 10 can be a carriage return and it'll break there instead of other places. If I take out the char 10, it won't break there and you'll get that. So there we go. All right, so out of all of these, when you find yourself wanting to have a way of accessing that character without actually using that character, char is a function that allows you to do that, but especially it's important and helpful with the double quotes, single quotes, and carriage return. I especially use it when I'm building a reference to another sheet. For example, if I wanted to build 1 through 5 here, and I want to build indirect references to sheet number 2 that has these Albuquerque 1 through 5, I can build that indirect reference by saying equals indirect concatenate or concat, and then we'll have the name of the tab, which is sheet 2, and I'll put that in quotes, sheet 2 exclamation point, and then the column, which is H, and I'll close the quote there, and then here I'll make a reference to this. But then since it's not actually row 1, I believe it is row, and let me pause this by putting an apostrophe there. I'll hit tab, come back over here and look, and that's row 8 that I want to start that on. So I'm going to use some math here. I'll take that apostrophe back off so that I can continue to edit my function, if I make this plus 7, close the concatenate, close that, then this will sum up to 8 in this cell. But if I copy this down, it has worked to add 7 to 2, add 7 to 3, add 7 to 4, and 5, so that I get the right row here. But if I were going to build this in a way, let me make a copy of this. And now I want to refer to sheet 2. If I'm doing that now, I want to refer to sheet 2 and in parentheses 2. My point being that when you have a space or some special character in a tab name, the reference needs to be encapsulated in single quotes. So let me show you an example. If I say, let me come over here and I'm going to make these 11 and 12. And if I take these, there we go. Coming back over to here, if I'm going to build a reference to that, let me just click here, click here, click here, and then I've got a reference to it. This reference, because there's a space in that reference, I need a single quote at the beginning and at the end of the sheet name, followed by the exclamation point, such that if I'm going to do this and I'm going to say 11, 12, and go down to 15, and now I'm going to bring these over with an indirect concatenate. In this case, I can't do what I did before and just say sheet name, because now there needs to be a single quote to encapsulate this whole sheet name. So how I need to do this here is use char 39. So I'm going to say char 39, put a comma, and then I'll use another char 39 over here. And now it says, oh, I should have had it be -3. There we go. And now if I paste this down, that's how that works. So you see how char 39 comes in handy when we're doing indirect concatenate references. So that's char. Next time we'll talk about upper, lower, and proper ways to modify text. See you then.